This is the Saturday morning interview. My name is Geoffrey Onditi. Today in the studio, I have Dr. Margaret Karembu, Director, ISAAA, or International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-biotech Applications, ISAAA. And she's also the Chair of OFAB, or Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology in Africa. Welcome to the Saturday morning interview, Dr. Margaret Karembu.
Thank you very much, Onditi.
Have you been long time?
Yeah, it has been long.
On English service, that is.
Yes. And so glad to have you here.
Yes.
I'm really happy that you have given me this opportunity to just share some of the perspectives that our country is having and how we see research helping in this situation.
Yes, we are glad that we've met, but we have a challenge of drought in this country.
Yes, drought is indeed a very big challenge, and I would also like to use this forum to pass our sincere sympathies to all those families out there. 3 million people facing starvation is such a big number. It's so unfortunate, and given that this is a situation that we have seen before,
yes,
by this time we should really have a solution to this problem.
Many people have said many things about this current drought, but as a scientist, what really brings such cases of prolonged drought or prolonged rains all the time?
One of the big challenges we are having is that of climate change. The climate for sure has changed, and with it comes impacts. Sometimes it could be severe drought, sometimes it could be flooding. For Kenya now, we're having a situation where the rains have failed. All this tells us that we need to get ready to see how best we can handle the problem of climate change.
So it's all about climate change.
That is primarily it. It's climate change. And of course, human interventions, human interference with our global environment. People have cut down trees, then the soils are no longer very productive. They're not able to support agriculture as they used to. And so basically those are some of the things that have brought this problem. You've
mentioned human activities. Are they that serious in impacting climate?
Oh, yes. If we consider, for example, our country, 20% is the only land that can support agriculture. The rest is semi-arid or arid. Now, as the population has increased, people have also moved to the semi-arid marginal areas by continuous cultivation in those marginal areas, and more so using the wrong varieties, using the wrong methods and tools. Then we have interfered with the whole global climate stabilization, and so we are now suffering from the harsh response to nature. Yes. When you interfere with nature without caring for it. This situation is happening all over Africa. Indeed, in Southern Africa region, last year they suffered the most severe drought. For once, even South Africa itself, that has been food secure, was exploring possibilities of importing food for their people to avert famine.
Yes, Daktari, let's focus on the challenges of this drought and how we can mitigate the challenges of drought which we are facing currently in this country. Stakeholders have mentioned many technologies, and for sure, I know you are one of the stakeholders as OFAB and as ISAAA in this country. What are some of the technologies that governments or stakeholders can utilize in order to mitigate drought?
Yes, indeed, we do have technologies, both biotechnology and even conventional technologies, that can help us mitigate this challenge. There is actually no one single solution to the problem we are having today. It needs a combined effort. It needs a multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary approach. We need to have good quality seeds, and good quality seeds will come from the research that our national programs and other private sector players are doing to ensure that farmers get the right seed, which is of the quality that will survive in the different agroecological climates that we are finding ourselves in. Secondly, we need to utilize cutting-edge technologies, and one of them is biotechnology.
Before we go to biotechnology, you mentioned some of the research that is being conducted in order to find solutions to drought, for example. Just mention some of this research that is ongoing.
We do have, I can mention at least 3 of them. Yes. We have what we call the Water Efficient Maize for Africa. This is a product. It's a
That is WEMA?
That is WEMA.
Yes.
In WEMA, we do have non-biotech seeds that are already working very well with the farmers in around the country. If you go now, currently, you'll find that the only surviving maize could just be maize that is coming from that product, the wema, which is not genetically modified. Then we do have varieties of sorghum that are drought tolerant. We also have cassava that is also quite tolerant to drought. And just the other day I was in Western Kenya and I found that farmers there are still having some standing plants of cassava, and so they can survive on those crops when periods of drought like this come in. Unfortunately, we also do have beliefs and cultural values and the way we attach, those values that we attach to food. In Central Kenya, where I come from, if you tell people to eat cassava, they think that cassava is an inferior crop, and yet this is a crop that can solve so many of our problems as far as food insecurity is concerned. Let's say that it can provide the energy, the carbohydrates that we need, the energy to work. It has a certain limitation in terms of nutrition, but again, researchers are working on improving the nutritional quality of cassava to make it a whole meal. So when drought hits and you have cassava, you can be sure you'll get the energy you need, you'll get the vitamins you need, and you'll get the oils you need in cassava, and the micronutrients that are all needed for nutrition. So basically, these are crops that can and are surviving in drought conditions, and we need to encourage our people to change their eating habits.
So we don't have to depend ugali for lunch and for dinner all the time.
I know that if I say that ugali is not the only meal for some people in parts of this region, they will be very unhappy.
Yes.
But we have now seen that we can no longer rely on maize and ugali for that matter as the only measure of food security. We need to open up, we need to diversify. This country can support different crops that can help us mitigate food shortage during times of drought. I didn't even talk about sweet potato. Sweet potato is a very nutritious crop. It is a staple. It is growing. Even now, you can still find vines surviving in different regions, and a lot of research has gone into sweet potato to make it more nutritious. We have the orange flesh sweet potato. All these interventions are not biotech interventions. However, this unique technology also has its place in ensuring that even when you get a drought-tolerant crop, then you can also build in other measures, for example, pest resistance, so that the farmer can get a better yield.
Before we go to biotechnology, you mentioned the various research that is being conducted. Has this research been taken to the farmers?
I would say yes and no. When you have a process that does not quite support the extension services that we used to have long ago, it becomes a challenge for research to move from the shelves to the farmers. I would say that we do have a number of players on the ground that are really struggling to ensure that research ends in the farmers' fields, research products. Calro, for example, has been working very closely with the other county executives in agriculture and extension, how best they can formalize means of working together so that the research they are doing can reach to the farmers, and other NGOs, that church-based groups that are also working very hard to try and see how farmers can access planting material.
Let's go back to biotechnology. I know this is your favorite field here in Kenya because we've done so many programs with you concerning biotechnology, and we know that biotechnology also has a place in terms of mitigating the challenges that are brought by a drought. But as a scientist, what is the place of biotechnology?
Thank you, Onditi, and glad that you're giving me an opportunity now to talk about my pet subject,
your favorite.
My favorite subject,
Yes.
Biotechnology. What we have seen at the global level, we have realized that countries that have adopted biotechnology have tended to have food security taken care of very well. We have also seen that those countries that are growing biotech crops are also able to enhance their environmental conditions. And that is why I keep encouraging all of us to be more open-minded as far as this tool and this technology is concerned. It's now over 20 years since the first biotech crops were grown by farmers. Currently, at least by 2015, we had 18 million farmers growing these crops around 28 countries.
That is in a period of 20 years.
In a period of 20 years.
Yes.
Of course, there could have been more, and there could be more countries because we only track those countries that officially pronounce that they're growing biotech crops. We do know that a lot of illegal planting is happening because, as you know, with farmers, when you visit your neighbor and your neighbor is growing a good crop, then we tend to share seeds.
The seeds.
We tend to share the seeds. The seeds and the seedlings.
Yes.
And so biotechnology has a place in our society to help us add value to whatever traditional breeding techniques and products that our researchers have come up with. In Africa, we only have 3 countries: South Africa, Burkina Faso, and Sudan. And I am sure you may have read about the situation in Burkina Faso, which I would also like to clarify if you give me some time.
We'll come to the situation in Burkina Faso because I also read an article in one of our local dailies. But when we talk about the 3 countries that are utilizing this technology in terms of food production or crop production, that is, why haven't we seen the number growing in terms of countries that are utilizing this technology? Because they've remained few for a long time.
Yes, that's a good observation on DT, and we are quite concerned that there seem to be other hidden challenges that discourage our researchers from getting these products to farmers. Now, one of the big challenges is the problem of the regulatory process. Now, our regulatory processes, especially in Africa, tend to be burdensome, and so our public sector researchers who are working very hard on very important products, in fact food products for our general population, are not able to move as fast as they would like to bring the product to the farmer. So if the regulatory system is expensive, it is unpredictable, because again there's a lot of I must say political interference with the regulatory system. And a regulatory system works on the science and the evidence that is available. So I would really plead that we differentiate between the politics and the science, so that we can allow our scientists to provide solutions to society through this technology. And then our regulators. It has been a big challenge, because when you make a decision, like we're having in Kenya now, yes, a regulator makes a decision, and then that decision is subjected to additional political processes. It becomes very frustrating, because once you miss 1 or 2 seasons to do research, that's a big loss for the country. And it is only research that can inform us whether the product that has been approved from a regulator point of view is going to survive in the different climatic conditions that we have, in the agroecological and the geography of our country. So that is one of the challenges. The second challenge has been misinformation. There has been a lot of misinformation and a lot of allegations and falsehoods about this technology. And unfortunately, those who peddle all those I would call them lies, because some of them are pure lies. They have not at all been involved in transforming some of these products. And so when somebody makes a claim, even to the effect that the products may not be safe, and you don't have the evidence, it becomes difficult even for a policymaker to make that bold decision about whether to adopt or whether to approve or to encourage or support the technology or not.
So is this activism, just activism?
There's a lot of activism against the technology and a lot of self-interest. And unfortunately, again, it becomes difficult when somebody has a mindset that I'll support this opinion and not this opinion. So our forum, for example, OFAB, we've been trying to encourage open-mindedness and also assessing and interrogating the evidence that is available that has actually shown that biotech crops, or so-called genetically modified crops, are as safe to eat as any conventionally bred crop. Indeed, you might even be safer using a GM crop which has been subjected to a very rigorous safety assessment process. Now, the second aspect is the aspect of just political goodwill. If you don't have political goodwill for the technology, then the public out there becomes confused. They don't know which side of the politics the technology is bending or the other, which is very, very unfortunate, because then our scientists are not going to perform.
They don't know who to believe, the public.
Exactly,
yes.
Exactly. It becomes very difficult to believe the scientist, to believe the politician, or to believe the activist.
This is the Saturday morning interview. Today in the studio, I have Dr. Margaret Karembu, Director, ISAAA, or International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-biotech Applications, ISAAA. And she's also the Chair of OFAB, or Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology in Africa. In terms of the countries that are utilizing this technology, I know also maybe there might be drought in those countries. So how have they survived their drought situations because they have this technology?
A number of countries, let me first say that drought-tolerant crops were only approved for commercial use 2 years ago. And again, the giant USA was the first country to approve and start growing the GM crops that are drought tolerant. And the results have been amazing. Farmers have continuously asked for these crops because they actually get hit by drought quite often. The other country that is ready to use the drought-tolerant technology is South Africa, very close to us. And South Africa now is producing, multiplying the seeds, especially for maize seed, to ensure that by next year, in 2018, they'll have a full program where farmers will access drought-tolerant seed for maize. The other crops, drought-tolerant sugarcane is also there.
Even sugarcane?
Yes.
I've never heard of that.
Oh, yes. Indonesia, which is again one of the most populous of the Asian countries, has already approved drought-tolerant sugarcane. You can imagine growing sugarcane. Yeah, that of course takes a lot of water or needs a lot of water.
Yes.
But now we have a product which our farmers can grow without much water. Of course, we need water. By being drought tolerant doesn't mean that you can throw it in situations where there is no water. Of course, the basic attributes of a crop, which requires water to germinate and to sustain itself, will still be there, but we can use less water. And as the climate changes, we have less water, we have less rain, and so we need this technology so that we can get more of our drought-tolerant crops with farmers.
Let's come closer because you mentioned South Africa, and I know South Africa has been utilizing this technology, I think, since 1998, around there.
Oh, yes.
So
I can see you keep your facts very well. Eh?
Yes, thank you. So how can we compare South Africa? Because they've also faced these situations, the drought situations. Mm-hmm. So how did they survive? Because they have this technology. How did this technology help them to cope with drought situations?
I would say that they haven't quite had their first crop for drought, and that is why the government of South Africa prioritized drought tolerance as one of the research areas requiring and needing investment so that they can now handle it without having to rely on other people for food. Onditi, if you rely on other people for food, you lose your dignity. And so we really need to think very seriously on how this country of ours, Kenya, can develop mitigation measures against drought that requires homegrown solutions and that does not always need us to beg for food, really.
That lowers our dignity.
It lowers our dignity. It becomes, a hungry person. And it also becomes, the country can become unruly because of hunger. Because a hungry person is an angry person. And then you also lose your face because then you become ugly. You see?
Yes.
So basically what we are saying, on a very serious note, we need to consider the interventions that can help this country to mitigate food shortage. And one of the big problems we have is drought. And we have seen it's recurring every few years. And we cannot just sit back. Of course, we also need to combine this with technologies to save water. When we get water, rain, a lot of water goes as runoff. It reduces our soil fertility. A lot of the soil is carried, topsoil, which is rich in minerals, is carried away and nutrients. And you put siltation, you put all that silt in our rivers. The rivers also start drying because then you have reduce the depth. And so basically it's a vicious cycle, and we have seen that this is doable. The problem can be addressed. We need the political goodwill, we need investments, and we need to support our scientists so that they can combine both conventional breeding, traditional breeding, as well as biotechnology.
So Daktari, let's go to the article that was in one of our local dailies this week concerning BT cotton in Burkina Faso and how it's going down, yet they are utilizing biotechnology in terms of growing cotton. And initially, cotton has been very successful in Burkina Faso, and the farmers have been enjoying or getting good income from this cotton. So what is happening exactly in Burkina Faso, yet this technology is being utilized?
Thank you for bringing up that issue. I wanted to make certain facts, and I'm glad I have the opportunity. One, Burkina Faso government has not banned the use of BT cotton. What they have done is to put a hold. Over the last 8 years, they have had very successful growing of BT cotton, and farmers have have enjoyed the benefits. They, however, started realizing that...
Maybe before we continue, I would like you to define BT cotton.
BT cotton is a form of biotechnology where you use a natural occurring soil bacteria that gives the cotton or the plant an inbuilt mechanism of protecting itself from insect pests or insect attacks. Now, for BT cotton, that bacteria or that intervention protects the cotton from a very specific and the most damaging of all the insects that attack cotton, which is called the bollworm. The bollworm is the most devastating of the pests in cotton. And farmers can lose everything. In fact, when farmers in Burkina Faso were using the traditional or conventionally bred seeds, they were losing close to 50% of their crop. Sometimes you can even lose 100%.
And that is a big loss.
That's a big loss for the country, and a big loss for a country that depends mainly on cotton as the cash crop, because cotton is the major cash crop of Burkina Faso. So the government itself realized the need to bring in this intervention to use the BT technology. And by the way, Onditi, this BT is the same concept that organic farmers use. It is one of the best and the most recommended of sprays for organically grown produce. So it is really a safe intervention. It has been tested thoroughly, both as used for spray and as used when it is inbuilt or inbuilt to help the plant or the crop to protect itself from insect infestation. From the bollworm, yes. Yeah. So, and in maize, it has been used for reducing infestation for the stem borer. It's the same concept. So in Burkina Faso, the government up to today is very, very clear that the problem was not that of the BT technology. The problem appears to have been the varieties that were used initially to put that technology in, to put the BT technology in it so that they can sustain productivity. So because of that, it's actually a problem of a shorter fiber length or lint from the traditional varieties that farmers were growing. And again, just to put facts right, what happened was, as more and more farmers grew the BT cotton, and Burkina Faso being a very marginal, most of the land is very marginal. As farmers get into very, very marginal lands, of course the plant is struggling. So you don't expect it to perform with the same kind of characteristics of lint as that which is grown in the very suitable areas where cotton has been grown in Burkina Faso.
Yes, Dr. Arias, we wind up the Saturday morning interview. Let's end from where we started, mitigating drought in this country. As a scientist, what could be your special message to the stakeholders of this country? When I talk about stakeholders, this is the private sector, the citizen, and even research, the people who are doing research. What is your special message to them in terms of mitigating drought? And even, let me not forget, the government.
Thank you. Now, Kenyans, I would say that we need to all come together. We need to work together. The different actors have different contributions to make to mitigate drought. Let us not wait until the calamity or the tragedy happens. We know that we need to utilize our water bodies. We need to utilize the technologies of harvesting water very well. So let's not wait. For example, now rains are coming in March, April. By now, we should be preparing ourselves to save the amount of water that we are going to get from God.
So we have to harvest the water.
We need and we must harvest water. Secondly, we have irrigation programs. We also need to invest in low-cost irrigation techniques that our small farmers can also be able to access. Thirdly, we need technology. There is no question about that, and there is no shortcut. We need technology, we need research. So let us consider the options that are available at our disposal. Public sector, private sector, let us come together. Get research moving. It's saddening that right now there is a product under WEMA, the Water Efficient Maize for Africa, that is is drought tolerant. Okay, of course, it has the BT technology to resist the insect infestation from the stem borer, and research is ready with one variety that has both insect resistance and drought tolerant. You can imagine when there is drought, of course, insects also thrive, and so they destroy everything. But if you have a product,
because they are hungry,
everybody is hungry,
yes,
so everybody is looking for whatever is available. In fact, you know that there is even a problem of the armyworms now. They are all looking out to eat whatever is available. But if we consider the technology, the technology is very safe. The process assures safety. And we should not be discouraged by the amount of lies and myths that are out there. The World Health Organization, the United Nations Food and Agricultural Program, academies of science, including Nigeria's Academy of Science, medical professionals have all supported the safety of genetically modified crops, those that are already in the market. So we need to get together. Private sector also, we encourage them to support researchers so that we can have these products with farmers, because it's only when you do your research and get products to the farmers that you can be able to know worries of the unknown, so that then our country can move forward and ensure food security for all. So it's a combination. It's not one-off intervention. It requires investment for government, supportive policies for research, supportive policies for the regulatory system, supportive policies for transparent and open communication and awareness with our public. It should not be a forced strategy. Those who would like to continue using traditional seeds should also and have space to do that. It's really a matter of choice.
Yes.
Let us provide that choice so that those who want to move forward moves forward. Those who want to continue even in the times of Jesus Christ, when he was here on earth, we had so many doubting Thomases. But when you provide the evidence, when you showcase what the technology can do, then I believe that we can all move together as Kenyans.
But information is power. Thank you very much, Dr. Margaret Karembu, for talking to the Saturday morning interview and really educating many Kenyans concerning biotechnology and how to mitigate drought in this country.
Thank you, Onditi, and I do again appeal to all of us to work together, because it's not a good picture for Kenyan citizens to be shown out there and our cattle and our livestock dying because of a problem that we can easily mitigate.
Thank you very much. And with that, we come to the end of the Saturday morning interview today. I've been speaking with Dr. Margaret Karembu from the Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology in Africa. She's also the director, ISAAA, here in Kenya. Till next week, my name is Geoffrey Onditi. Have a lovely weekend.